Hey ladies and gentlemen, Steven here from Redolessence. Welcome back to another video. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you're doing well. I'm a little bit late to the party. This fragrance came out back in March of 2020, and this is the most recent flanker for the light blue collection. And this one is called Love is Love by Dolce Gabbana. So make sure to stay tuned. So like I said, this is a line that is doing incredibly well, and you can tell because the original came out in 2007. It's been around for 13 years now, and they have so many flankers, some of which didn't really resonate with me. I know there's one with Stromboli in the name. I didn't really care for that one too much. There's also one with Vulcano in the name. I didn't care too much for that one either. But then of course, there are some that came out recently that I happen to enjoy quite a bit. As a matter of fact, last year's iteration, which is just called Sun, I thought this one is awesome. This one contains that sort of tropical, sort of coconut suntan lotion vibe. And this one is said to be similar to the original, but it has this vanilla gelato accord, and it also has added vanilla in the base. You have the sour green apple note up on top, but then you also see some familiar notes that are also found in the original from 2007. So you see the rosemary's in there, the grapefruit is in there, the musk is in there. So they do share a lot of notes in common. Inevitably, this one, you can smell it and you can think to yourself, okay, this is definitely a flanker of light blue. So I'm here to discuss whether I think they deviated a whole lot from that original DNA. I'm here to talk about the little nuances of what separates this from the original, as well as other flankers that I've encountered. And also, if I can compare it to any other fragrance, I'll make sure to do that as well in this review. But let's go ahead and start things off by taking a very quick look at the presentation. So the box for this fragrance looks a little bit different from the original because of the bright, bold font with the white stroke and the cursive font here on the front. And then you also have the heart on the side, so that's enough to separate it from the original. The bottom of the box has a serial number punched into it in case you ever want to look up your batch code on checkcosmetic.net or one of these other websites. And just like previous years, you can see towards the top that this is a limited edition. The bottle for this fragrance looks really nice as well. It just has Love and Love written here towards the middle. The bottom contains your batch code. The cap for this fragrance clicks into place very securely. And the distribution on the atomizer is nice and wide. Let's talk about the smell. So I must say, I love the opening of this fragrance. As soon as you spray it on, for like the first 30 seconds to a minute, you are going to get this really bright grapefruit note. And grapefruit, of course, is the ingredient that you find in the original light blue from 2007. And it gives it this very sharp sort of summery appeal. So there's no question as to what season you would wear this in. It's just very bright and citrusy, but it has this tartness in the opening that you may like, you may not like. If you are a fan of some of the more docile citrus notes out there, you may prefer like orange or bergamot. You might want to stay away from like lemon or grapefruit or yuzu or something that has that tart edge to it. But once you give it about a minute to 2 minutes to dry down, you are going to get this super subtle vanillic sweetness. And the vanilla that's used in here, it's not like an ultra powerful or gourmand vanilla. It's nothing like that. It just has this very nice sort of smooth and subtle undercurrent that leaves you wanting to smell it again. And it's like, wow, there's something lurking in there underneath that I really seem to be enjoying. And this is where I feel like that vanilla gelato accord comes into play. So it has this added Granny Smith apple, this sour green apple note up on top. I know I read a few different things. I went on Sephora's website, I went on Fragrantica, and a lot of these websites have it listed differently. So it has this tart green apple note in the opening, and I do smell something in there that can pass off as apple, so I'm totally picking up on that. And then of course you also have vanilla in the base. So I think that this ice cream accord, or this vanilla gelato accord, which is residing in the mid, is really just a fantasy note, right? So it's the combination of the apple in the opening and the vanilla in the base. And I think as a company, Dolce & Gabbana said, hey, let's include this in here as a fantasy note or a fantasy accord, because when you read notes like that, right, it really makes your ears perk up, it catches your attention, and they're doing the right thing, I think. Does it really smell like vanilla ice cream? I don't necessarily think so. I think there's something in here that is very likable, to the extent that if you don't want something that's ultra plain or just very simple in the fresh sense, you want something that has that edge to it, you might enjoy the subtle nuance of this one. But if you want something that really combines citrus and vanilla, I know there's a fragrance by 4160 Tuesdays London called The Sexiest Scent on the Planet or something like that. That one is a really nice combination of citrus and really bold vanilla. There's also Lyra by Zerzov. So there are a lot of fragrances out there that really combine very bright citrus with very heavy vanilla. This fragrance is not it. You are going to get like 85% citrus, 15% vanilla. Now, one thing that I do notice about this one, it retains the aromatic properties of the original. It retains that citrusy appeal of the original. But I went online and I saw a lot of people were actually comparing it to Dolce & Gabbana's Light Blue Intense for Her. I totally agree. I think that because of the inclusion of that apple note in the opening, which we've actually not seen too much on the men's side, this one kind of gives it a little bit more familiarity in comparison to the women's DNA. And I love that fragrance. My wife has gone through several bottles of it. I always repurchase it for her. It's one of her favorite fragrances. And to this date, I really enjoy smelling it on her. So to have like the masculine counterpart to that, I'm actually quite impressed that they managed to do that, but in a way that it doesn't smell ultra feminine. And I would imagine that that's because of the absence of the floral ingredients. But I really do like the smell of this fragrance. The caveat here is that that sort of bright, citrusy, fruity, apple, vanillic opening goes away after like 10 to 15 minutes. And what's left is really just a shadow of it. And I was really impressed in the opening and I sprayed it on and I said, this is gonna be good. And maybe half an hour to an hour into wearing the fragrance, it was lost. And I felt the need to smell that opening again. So for as long as I've had this fragrance, I found myself reapplying. And so that's one of the caveats and one of the drawbacks that I kind of wish that really awesome smell in the opening lasted a little bit longer, but unfortunately I think it's on account of the volatility of a lot of these ingredients like the apple and the citrus. They can't be expected to last a whole lot in this fragrance, but ultimately I really enjoyed the smell. I think I would certainly deduct a few points on the longevity scale. I think in terms of the uniqueness, that can be slightly compromised because of the comparisons that can be made to Light Blue Intense for Her, but in terms of a solid men's release that happens to be a flanker for the year of 2020, I think they did a pretty good job. Unfortunately, it's a smell that I wish lasted a little bit longer. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, which is one of the metrics that I looked at when assessing the overall, assessment of this fragrance, I don't think it's ultra unique in the sense that I do think it has some similarities to Light Blue for Her, but it's one of those smells that I really, really enjoy. And I think what we've seen is that both in the niche and the designer industry of the perfume world, a lot of companies are sort of taking that DNA and putting their own twist on it. So of course you have Jardin de Malfi by Creed. I think it also kind of falls within that line. You also have Acqua Fiorentina, which is a woman's fragrance, also by Creed. You have Soleil de Capri by Montal. So a lot of companies are sort of taking that light blue vibe and they're putting their own twist on it. And I personally love the way that it smells. Here, it's done in a way that's slightly more masculine, and I would say that's on account of the tartness of a lot of the citrus notes in addition to that apple note that's used in the opening. So it's not the most unique fragrance, but the overall smell is incredibly pleasant. I actually had my wife smell it, and I don't know if I should be worried because she said she likes this, but it's also a fragrance that she would wear for herself, which of course I always find fragrances to be unisex. I think anybody can wear them as long as you like the way that they smell, but I think it just goes to show that there's nothing about this fragrance that is definitively masculine. So she said that she wouldn't mind wearing it herself. So there you go. In terms of the longevity, I got about 5 hours on my skin. It's a bit lackluster in that department. I kind of wish that it lasted a little bit longer. And it's not even necessarily the overall longevity, but the longevity of the introduction. The introduction, in my opinion, is the best part of this fragrance. If I could just have that lasting an hour longer, I'd be that much more satisfied. But it really only lasted on my skin for about half an hour to an hour, which was a bit of a letdown. But the overall longevity is going to be about 5 hours. Just keep in mind that it does radiate within an elbow's length. This is not a loud fragrance at all. So this is the kind of fragrance that you can get away with wearing, obviously in the summertime when it's really warm outside and the heat allows this to really jump up off your skin and evaporate, but also in a work environment, you know, post-quarantine. When you go back to work, you're wearing this fragrance and you're just gonna, it's a mass appealing aroma, you know, it's nothing that's going to turn people off. And I would imagine that a lot of people would take kindly to this. It's a very likable scent. In terms of the versatility, I think this one definitely comes across casual. I don't think there's anything overly formal about this one. There isn't too much body to it, if I can use that word. And so I can see this one being worn just, you know, going to work, in the office. Maybe you're, you know, taking a long drive down the shore to the beach or something like that. I can see myself wearing it in that scenario. Despite the fact that it's marketed for men, I do see this one having that unisex appeal on account of the similarities with Light Blue Intense for her. I think that this one is good for anybody of any age. Perhaps if you're a little bit older, you want to reach for something a little bit more sophisticated, more mature, and perhaps something a little bit more masculine if you're looking for a men's fragrance, right? And in terms of the presentation, I know some people took qualms with like the really bright and bold lettering on it. Personally, I don't mind. I think when it comes to a flanker, there should be enough of a discernment, I guess, to separate it from the original, because as a customer, a lot of customers are not, or I guess the layman isn't too familiar with the concept of flankers. And this is something that I've seen firsthand. And so the more that you can do to differentiate between an original and a flanker, I think the better off you'll be as a company. And so they kind of do that here with the heart on the front. You see it and you're like, no, that's not the one that I bought 2 years ago. So I personally don't mind the name itself. I don't know if it speaks to 21st century values or anything like that. I didn't do a whole lot of research in that department, and I would never get political when it comes to that stuff. But my final verdict is, I really like this fragrance for the first 20 minutes. I think that had that introduction lasted a little bit longer, man, this would have been a solid fragrance. Am I gonna continue to wear it? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very likable scent, likable aroma. It's one that I see myself enjoying for a long time now, at least while the weather stays warm. We had this really weird snowstorm recently, but luckily it only hit upstate New York, not in northern New Jersey where I live. We just got really cold winds. But I think for a summer fragrance, it's quite solid. Now, do I like it more than Light Blue Sun, which I actually said I really enjoyed as a 2019 release? I plan on doing a separate video on that, so make sure to stay tuned. I'll go over all of the differences, and this is actually much cheaper right now, and this is also available at discounters. So I do plan on making a follow-up video to this, just so that if you're a consumer, you're interested in purchasing one of them, you like the Light Blue DNA, hopefully this video helps you in deciding which one of the two you should purchase. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I hope you're all staying safe and well during these difficult times. If you are new to this channel and you took something of value from this video, please do consider subscribing to this channel. I would love it, and you'd be supporting something that I've been doing for the past 8 years now. All you gotta do is click that red button in the corner, and this way, whenever I do upload future fragrance-related content, it'll get delivered straight to your feed. You never need to worry about missing any of my future uploads. And of course, that includes fragrance reviews just like this, top 10 videos, giveaways, unboxings, special guests, interviews, and more. Thanks for watching. Love you all. See you next time.